Hi guys, welcome to the very first episode of a new series that I'm doing. I am so stoked about it. I've been thinking about it, ruminating, trying to figure out the best way to shoot and do this. And what I've decided to do is combine two of my great passions in life, therapy and makeup. Do you like both of those things?
Yeah.
Yeah? Some of you may already know this. I'm currently in graduate school to become a clinical psychologist, to become a therapist. Not totally sure what I want to specialize in, but I do know that I love it, and human behavior and trying to figure out the deepest parts of ourselves to then better our brains and work through issues to make our lives more full and fulfilling and grand, let's say, is just the coolest thing ever. So what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to be putting on a full face of makeup. I'm going to show you the products, tips and tricks, little things that I do. This is like an everyday makeup routine. I'm not going to go too crazy. This is something that I generally do whenever I put makeup on in the week. And then I'm also going to be answering some therapeutic questions. This time I asked people on Instagram any therapeutic questions that they had. And I got a bunch of really, really cool responses that I can't wait to answer and really think about myself, because we're all works in progress at the end of the day. So I've already prepped my face. I've done all skincare, moisturizers beforehand. I'm going to detail all of that moving forward in some video at some point in the future. So if you're not already, subscribe, hit the little bell so you can look out for that, and let's get started. Before I start, I don't have a name for this yet, for this series. So this is gonna be a combo of makeup and therapy. What my goal for this is for it to be an hour or however long it is of just meditation time where you can make yourself beautiful, not only on the outside, but also on the inside, and kind of think about yourself and reflect in a positive and healthy way. So if you have any name suggestions for what this should be called, for the makeup therapy combo, please write it down in the comment box. Cal, do you have any suggestions? You know? What would you call this show if you could call it anything?
Inflatable.
Inflatable. That's such a good one. Good choice.
I call it Cozy World.
Oh, Cozy World. That is my thing, yeah. So to start, I already put my primer on. I use this bad boy, Estee Lauder Futurist Aqua Brilliance. So I put that all over my face, and to start, we are going to put on foundation. Now, depending on what time of the year it is, I am either a 5 in this Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk foundation, or I'm a 5.1. Right now is that weird time of year where I'm not quite fully pale like I will be in April, but I still have a little tan. So I'm like right in between. So we're gonna mix them. I'm gonna take just a flat makeup piece. Can you hear Cal in the back laughing? That's so cute. And I'm just gonna do a little bit of both. And then I'm gonna take just the back of a eyeshadow brush. I'll just mix it up there. Now, I like to apply foundation with my fingers. I know a lot of people like to apply it with a brush. Not for me. I feel like it is too thick for my taste, and putting it on with my fingers, it feels like I'm almost rubbing in like a moisturizer, and it just feels like it really gets into my skin and looks a little lighter than when I do it with a brush, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm gonna take it, and we'll start here. All over, going into my ear too. And I know some people don't do it under their eye, but I do. So why don't we start, while I'm doing this, with my very first question. So my first one is, and I've folded the names just so I don't put anybody on blast, but the first one is, ooh, love this. Biggest breakthroughs you've had during therapy. I have been in therapy now for 4 years, on and off. And no, that's not true. For 4 years consistently, every week. I was in therapy on and off before that. I've done all different kinds. I've done cognitive behavioral therapy, I've done just talk therapy, I've done couples therapy, and I am one of the lucky ones that found an incredible therapist. Her name is Kim, and I've been with her now for almost 4 years, and she has helped me in ways that I can't even verbalize. And with that, I think my biggest breakthrough in therapy has been getting to a point with Kim where I felt comfortable enough to really explore the deep, dark parts of myself. I think for a long time, even the first maybe year and a half that I was with her, there's a big part of me that's a people pleaser, love to do it, just want people to like me. And I think even with Kim, and she was so open and empathetic and kind, and I knew she wasn't judging me, but there was a big piece of me that was still kind of wanting to put my best self forward and not show my flaws and the parts that needed healing in therapy. And once I got to the point where I realized that therapy is for you. Therapy is your time. It's not this time to act like you're this perfect person or like you're really figuring it all out or like you have it all together, because no one does. We're all trying to figure it out. And once I kind of let that barrier down and started to convey to her how I was really feeling, the deep, dark parts, that's when the breakthroughs really started to happen, because she was able to see me fully, and I was able to feel like I was being seen and appreciated and heard at my deepest, darkest places. So I think that's normal in therapy. I know that even in school, something that we're learning is more than what theory you might use in session or who you might respect or tips and tricks and tools that you may use as a therapist. The most important thing to get a client to really make breakthroughs is to just be empathetic and warm and kind. And Kim is the best at that. And so I think establishing trust between she and I and getting to a point where I felt like I could be my full self was probably my biggest breakthrough. And I think I was worried about being judged, and I wanted so badly to be this perfect with a bow on top person, even though I wasn't. And once I got to a point where I was at peace with that within myself, which Kim helped me do, I think that's really where the most learning starts, is at that point. So I think that's my biggest breakthrough. So I'm just continuing with foundation all over my nose, and then I'm tapping it through with my beauty blender. So we're gonna continue all the way up. I like to put a little in my hairline. I feel like it just makes it kind of seamless, your makeup seamless. And then this is my problem spot, right here in between my eyebrows. So I just want to make sure that that's really blended and nice and that there's no creases, because I am 31. The aging process has started. I'm not thrilled about it, but you know what? It's better to be 31 than to be dead. And being grateful that I'm still here and that I'm happy and alive is a blessing in itself. So let the wrinkles come. I'm ready for it. And I'm not ashamed. It is what it is. All right, let's go to the next question as I'm finishing beauty blending my forehead. Resolving arguments with your significant other before going to sleep versus cooling off and resolving it later. So I think there's this kind of age-old trope that we've all heard. Oh, I'm also going to be using concealer right now. This is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Concealer in number 5. love this. So I know there's this trope that you're not supposed to go to bed angry. And I fully disagree with that statement. I think the nature of marriage and being in long, committed relationships is that there are some arguments, there are some issues that quite literally cannot be resolved before you go to bed, just the nature of it. I know that I am guilty of this. I had this idea that when I got married, when I found my perfect person, that everything would be rainbows and sunshine, and he would get me in every single way there was to get me. And we'd have arguments, sure, but it'd be over like, oh, he put the pan in the wrong drawer, or he forgot my birthday for like 5 minutes and then made up for it or something. But that's just not how it goes, because we're human beings and we're these flawed ape creatures that are trying to figure out this weird existence. And so the nature of that, I think there's plenty of times that you go to bed angry. That's okay. I think putting a pressure on yourself to just have to figure it out and solve it can put you in a place where you're not actually saying what you really feel. You're not thinking it through and taking the time to figure out an issue fully. You're just saying what you need to put the Band-Aid on an issue that may be way bigger than that. And so my advice to you is not to put any stress or pressure on this idea that we can't go to bed angry and we can't leave an issue unresolved, because that's just not a realistic standard, being flawed, gray, complex human beings. So I know there have been plenty of issues like that in my marriage where things have dragged on and on and on, and that's the time where seeking outside help can be a really valuable tool. I also know that therapy isn't not cheap, and we're lucky enough to be in a position where we can afford having outside help, and that's really frustrating because that shouldn't be an economic issue, whether or not someone can get real valuable help, therapeutic help. And hopefully that's something in the future that we will find, as a community, we'll find resources for and kind of figure out. But I can say that if you do have the financial means to afford going to a couples therapist or going to an individual therapist, if that's something that you are willing to do, that it's so helpful. Even just having someone that you can kind of use as a backboard to just get your ideas out and just to feel seen and heard is really powerful. So don't put any pressure on yourself to not go to bed angry, because that's not realistic. All right, I'm going to continue with concealer. One of my problem areas is right under the nose. And so that's a spot that I want to make sure that I get. I also have a couple little blemishes that I'm going to cover. Some brown spots. Another beautiful part of aging are those brown spots that come. Then I'm also going to kind of line right under here, under my cheekbones, just to highlight a little bit where I want, and then under my chin too. I also have dry spots kind of right here. I don't even know what this is called, the above lip crease. And so I gotta be careful there. I try to moisturize extra in those spots, just so it doesn't get too dry and kind of flaky when you're doing this. I mean, this face, it's terrifying. Slender Man. Wow, imagine going to therapy and like you've never been to therapy before and that was who you came. We're getting there. I hope that this is therapeutic this time. That's my goal with this. Is I have no idea if there's an audience for it or not, but I know for me, a lot of the times I watch makeup tutorials and I'm not even really looking fully at the techniques or the products or whatever it may be. It's just calming to be doing my makeup with someone that's also doing their makeup. And of course you watch and you do learn some things and like, oh, that's a pretty color, I should try that. But I hope that this is a time where you can sit down, do your makeup, not feel judged, feel like people are hearing you, and that there are other people like you with similar issues. No one is perfect. No one's even close, really. And we're all just trying to figure it out, man. We're all just trying to figure it out. So I hope that that is what this is for you. All right, we are foundationed. We're concealed. We're gonna move on to bronzer. I typically have a bronzer stick. It's the same, it looks like this typically, but I just ran out. So I have a substitute. It's the same brand, Milk. I don't know what shade this is. This is the Bionic Bronzer. I think the shade that I use in this, the bronzer version, is Baked, I believe. Love a cream bronzer and blush. I feel like it goes on your skin so much better. It lasts longer. It just looks dewier and more like your real skin. So that's what I would recommend if you're using like a powder, blush, or bronzer. Switch to a brand like Milk that has a cream blush and bronzer. I feel like it really does make a difference. So not sure how this is gonna go because this is in a tube. It's not like a stick, but we're gonna try it. I'm gonna put it on my little handy dandy guy. Oh, it's like a little watery. We don't want that. Let's get the water out and just get the product. There we go, that's prettier. I don't want my contour to look clownish or like you can even really tell what it is. The whole point of contour is to kind of maximize the features that you already have. And so I'm gonna show you what I do for my face shape. What I first do is I take a little bit on my finger and I'm gonna go down the bridge of my nose. I'm gonna start right here and just make a straight line all the way down. I have like a little bit of like a bulbous area here. So there's that, when you reach kind of this area, my finger wants to go around it. Don't do that. Keep going straight right over the little hump. And that's kind of what gives you that look. Like that part is not there. It's a trick. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. All the way down. Straight. And then I'm just gonna kind of feather it out a little bit before we blend with the Beauty Blender all the way down. And I don't want the product underneath to come off, like the bronzer and the foundation. So tapping is gonna be our best bet. I'm gonna do the same kind of motion for my cheekbones. I start like when right here is my guy. And I do this. Don't know if that helps, but I do it. I also want to rub this line on the bottom because I don't want it to be this sharp line when I'm blending. Just kind of feather that out a little bit. And do the same thing on the other side. This is a good tip. And it's the nature of being a parent and just being, well, a human being in general. Is you just have so many things in the day that you have to do. And I will often give myself just enough time, especially with makeup, to finish. I frequently can be seen finishing my makeup in the car, not driving, but in the passenger side seat, or whenever I can find the time. And I have found that if I give myself like an extra half hour, if I can do that, to really do my makeup and take my time with it, it's so much more fun and relaxing. It goes from being a chore, like, oh, this makeup that I have to do, to being this fun, almost art project where you're sitting there and like trying new things. And also when you give yourself time, you inevitably look much better too. And so that's, if you can do it, if you have time, or make time, you block out time. Like, I'm going to take this time for myself. It really, really does help your mental health. I'm also taking my bronzer in my hairline, like I said before, just to make it more seamless. And then we're gonna do the same thing, get a little bit more on the other side. How can I convince my husband to do couples therapy with me? I think out of all the questions, this is the one, I got a version of this the most. I bet I got like 5 or 6 of these. And this is a tough one, especially for me, because my personality, I'm like a pusher. Like if I'm doing something that really is working for me, and I'm sure my husband can attest to this, all I want to do is like force him to do it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm reading this book. It's so amazing. It's making me think in this way. You have to do it. And then I find myself resentful when he doesn't, or I'm just like constantly bringing it up. And what that says to him is like, I'm nagging him and telling him about this thing that he doesn't want to hear about. So this is a hard one because I know there's a lot of situations where couples therapy can really help someone's relationship. And my biggest advice to you is, unfortunately, you can't force anybody to do anything, especially someone that you love and respect and are in partnership with. So the only thing that you can really do, of course you can suggest it. And if they're just immediately like, yes, that sounds really great, this is gonna be really good for us, I'm excited to try it. Or even if they're like, I don't know if this is going to be helpful, but I'm willing to do it to see if it will help things, that's great too. But I think what often happens is that there is one partner in the relationship that just refuses to go. They don't want to do it. It sounds not fun to them. It sounds like it's not going to help. They just don't want to do it. And at that point, there's very little you can do. But what you can do is you can be your own kind of light source. If you're in relationship with someone, especially if you're living with them or if you're married to them, your lights become enmeshed. They become one life essentially. And so if you're taking the time and the energy to work on yourself, if you're going to therapy, if you're reading, if you're figuring out these deep, dark parts of yourself and actively working on them, your partner is going to see that change because it's inevitable. You will be living and breathing this new part of life, and it will be shifting you in certain ways. And over time, if your partner can see that and see how seriously you're taking that, that could be kind of the instigator to push them to want to go to therapy themselves or attend couples with you. If they see how much it's helping you and if you're becoming a better person, that's only going to make them more hopeful that it could also work for them. So as much as the broken parts of me want to just push things on people and force them to do things, as I have done in the past and still do, it's still something I work on. That's not always the best route to take. People are only going to do things when they feel like they're ready. And so in the meantime, there is still so much work to be done on yourself always. I can't think of a person, even my therapist, Kim, who I see as just this enlightened, perfect human being. She's not, but she seems like that to me. But I know she's always working on herself in different ways. And so I would just take that opportunity to work on you and then kind of see where it goes there. All right, we are bronzed. It's not as bronzy as it typically is. My stick is more like dark, I guess. So after I spray everything, I'm gonna go over this with a little of my dry bronzer, my powder bronzer. Next up, my favorite part. I say that a lot. It's not my favorite part. Top 3. This is Work Milk Cream Blush. I love this color. I love the texture of it. You can put it on your lips, you can put it on your cheeks, you can put it on your eyes, wherever you want. It's just a great color, but I'm going to be putting it on my cheeks and on my cheekbones right now. So you just take it out. I like to, before I start, kind of like warm it up a little bit so it flows on top of my foundation a little bit better. And I just take what I kind of warm up and dot that on. And then I'll just stick it. And again, I'm tapping because I don't want any of the product underneath to come off. This looks like a lot, but when you blend it, it won't be. Let's go to question 4. Okay, tips on giving yourself grace when you have a setback, please. I'm pausing because it feels like that's a lesson that we just continually learn over and over again forever. At least I have been, in different forms and ways. Every year I feel like there's a new version of learning to give myself grace, and it's a really difficult thing to do. I know from my own personal journey. So I was a gymnast when I was, 4 to 16. I learned as I was aging how to be coached and how to be perfect. Anything less than a 10.0, there was something to be desired. And I think subconsciously it kind of effed me up. This idea that I had to perform all the time, or I had to be perfect and everything had to go a certain way, or it was a reflection on me. And so this is something that I really struggle with. I think I have this internal monologue that is kind of like a coach, where if I don't do something right, I'm criticizing myself. How can we do this better? What do we need to do? And there's something healthy in that too. Not being complacent and wanting to better yourself can be a positive if that's done in moderation. I actually took a pause to grab my journal that I take notes in during therapy, because I feel like Kim has a beautiful way of explaining this that has really helped me not be so self-critical and have the confidence to do things when things aren't perfect. Even this YouTube channel, this is something that I wanted to do for years and years and years and years. But every time I would film something, I would find things that were wrong, or it wouldn't be perfect, or the lighting wasn't perfect, or whatever it may be, and it stopped me from pursuing things that I really enjoyed. So Kim said this, and I think it's really helpful, that when I have a to-do list, or I have a goal, or I want to be perfect all day long and have all of my ducks in a row, look at what you are, what you do have, what you have succeeded in. That's something that we don't often do, is kind of reflect and look back at what we've already done. And I know that on paper, if I were to look at myself as a 25-year-old looking ahead and seeing what I have now as a 31-year-old, I'm married with 2 beautiful kids. I'm in school for something that I absolutely love. I'm pursuing creative dreams, and all of that stuff is amazing. But when I'm in this moment now as a 31-year-old, I think a lot of me can just kind of look to the future of what I want to do and how I haven't succeeded at that yet. And that can be a lot of the negative self-talk. So what Kim says is, if I didn't do this today, if I wasn't perfect, or I didn't succeed in every single thing that I wanted to today, or whatever it may be, I'm still pretty okay. Look at yourself the way that your 5-year-ago self would look at you, and take the time to be proud and look at what you have accomplished, what you have grown into or grown past. And so I think when it comes to giving yourself grace, when you have a setback, or when you don't act perfectly, or even when you act in a way that you're not happy with at all. I know I have those moments now where I can think of a situation recently where I had just, past trauma came up, and I handled a situation in a way that I am not proud of. And I wish I hadn't handled it that way. But all I can do now is apologize and try and do better, and remind myself that I can't be perfect all the time, and that I'm doing my best to try. I'm actively working all the time to be the best version of myself, for my kids, for my family. And so that's the advice I would give, is take a look back, kind of take an audit of what you have accomplished, be proud of where you are right now. So I have Beauty Blended, my blush. I'm gonna take, before we set this all, I'm gonna take a little, oh, you know what? We have some. A little bronzer. This is another wonderful thing that you get after you have kids. And when you have babies, you gain 1,000 pounds in 9 months, and then you have to lose it all, and then your skin freaks out because it just has so much stuff in it after. And I've noticed it the most like in my face. And so I have this beautiful little guy now that I try and hide with bronzer. So I just go right underneath there with bronzer to kind of shadow that little puffy guy that got big when I got pregnant and is still a little bit big. But you know what? We're giving ourselves grace. Look at where we came. Look at what this body did to make 2 babies. And I'm proud of that. So that's all you can do. And you can blend to blend it out. All right, we're gonna set. I have Too Faced Insurance. Before I start spraying my face and setting it, I like to spray it a couple times because sometimes gunk gets on that little tip. So it'll come out like a little wonky. So just to make sure that it's spraying evenly and kind of lightly. And then I'm just gonna go all over. Beautiful. Should look like you just jumped out of a pool. But it won't for long. So while I am letting this dry, let's do another question. Oh, great. I just wanted to read this because I don't understand it, and maybe someone can explain it in the comments. Someone said that you say your R is really crispy like Kim Kardashian. Hey, what's that mean? Tell me what it means. Would love to know. I have a little bit of a lisp from braces. I do know that. But I didn't know about the crispy R thing. But we're embodying it and we love it. Okay, a real question. What practices do you currently have that help you with stress and anxiety? Full disclosure. Actually, we'll do full disclosure after we set and powder. So I'm gonna take under my eyes, I do the Make It Forever Ultra HD Micro Finish Finishing Loose Powder. I do that under my eyes. And then the rest, I'm just gonna take a brush and I use the Anastasia loose setting powder over the rest of my face. So that's what I'll be doing while I answer this question. So what practices do you currently have that help you with stress and anxiety? And full disclosure, when I hit like 21, I got my first panic attack. Thought I was dying. Had my best friend Jill, shout out Jill, take me to the hospital. Was convinced I was going blind, having a stroke, something wild. Turns out it was just anxiety. Now that continued kind of with aggression for the next 7-8 years of my life. And my anxiety was rooted in my health. And it's something specifically called health anxiety. And any symptom I had in my body, whether it was like I would get out of the shower and my body would feel warm and I would be like, something's happening, I'm having a heart attack. Just ridiculous. Like there was something clearly that was the cause of it, but my brain couldn't shut down the worry that it was something bigger than that. And when I would spiral and have a lot of anxiety, I would have these physical symptoms manifest. And for me, that looked like pain in my chest. I would have heart palpitations and all the blood would go, when you have anxiety, like a panic attack, all your blood goes to your vital organs because your body thinks that like something's wrong, that you're in trouble. And my hands and my feet would go numb. And so instead of thinking, oh, this is because I'm having anxiety, this is all manifested because of anxiety, I thought that I had some bigger disease that doctors couldn't figure out and I was dying. And I mean, it sounds crazy even now, like saying it out loud. It was this wild period of my life. And the last year that I had it, when I was like 26, 27, before I got pregnant with Cal, it got to a point where like at least 60% of my thoughts were about my body and something happening. And that's originally when I went to cognitive behavioral therapy. I certainly learned skills there, but it still wasn't fully helping. And it wasn't until I went on an SSRI. This is by no means me advocating for medication, but I will say that for me, after all kinds of different therapy and all kinds of different things to try and stop these thoughts from happening, finally got on an SSRI, and within 6 weeks, my thoughts had diminished tenfold. It was so helpful. And the way that my doctor kind of explained it to me is that my body is sending the right signals at the wrong time. So like if I'm facing a tiger attack, that's really good that my body goes into like preservation mode where all my blood rushes to my organs and I'm like ready to fight. That's great. But it was doing it at the wrong times. Like I would just get out of the shower and think that I was dying, and that wasn't actually the case. So with a case like mine, getting on a medication really, really helped me. And learning tools, specifically CBT tools, where you take the thought and kind of you walk it all the way through. So in my case, I would think, okay, so if I do have this thing, then what? And then you say, okay, and then what? And then what? And it's usually not as scary, the end result, as you're making it to be. So I know that helped a lot. And I just say that before I really get into like stress and anxiety tools, because I think it's unfair sometimes where you see people that seem like they really have it together and that they're not anxious and they don't have issues. And I'm certainly getting to a place where my anxiety is more under control, but I have medical help that really helps me do that. So that's just my full disclosure. And then in terms of like just daily tips and tricks, in a perfect world, what really helps me is waking up before my kids, getting up early. If I can get up like an hour before my children and I have that time to myself, it really, really helps my mental health. I can have my coffee alone in peace. I can read. I can look outside and just kind of get my bearings together before. And if any of you have kids, you know that like the second your kids wake up, just madness. Beautiful, beautiful madness, but it is madness nonetheless. And a lot of your autonomy goes away because you're just helping these little babies grow into big humans, and that takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of sacrifice where you're thinking about their needs, more than yours. So getting up early is really helpful for me. Also getting help. And this is something else that is unfair because it's sometimes you can't always afford the help. But we have one of our best friends helps us with our kids. It has been a godsend, and it allows me to feel comfortable doing things like this for myself and knowing that they're right in the other room in safe hands. So I know getting over that guilt too as a mom where you're asking for help can be a lot. But another beautiful thing that Kim told me is when you ask for help, essentially what you're doing is you're allowing someone to come in and kind of take away the moments that are giving you a lot of anxiety. And that anxiety is going to show up with your kids. If you're really stressed, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like you don't have time for yourself, that's going to reflect in your behavior, and your kids are going to see that. And so for me, that it feels like having help in my life makes me a more present parent when I'm with them, a more loving parent because I'm getting my needs met. And then it's like putting your mask on before assisting others. You have help that you trust, and you can do things that you need to do for yourself. But then when you're showing up for your kids, which is the majority of the time anyways, you're showing up with, breath, with air in your lungs, and you can be present and loving and empathetic and not short-tempered. You can be patient with them. Those are certainly some things that I have in my life that really help with stress and anxiety. Okay, so face is powdered. We're gonna move to powder bronzer. Get my bronzer brush. This movie in, I'm just gonna go right over the line. And make sure you're tapping out your bronzer before you apply. You just don't want like a big wad on there. Other side too. And then we're gonna go in the hairline. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then a little on my nose to kind of secure in that line that we did. Gorgeous. Blush brush. Oh, I'm also using the NARS Blush Bronzer Duo, Orgasm Blush, and Laguna Bronzing Powder. This blush I think I've been using for like 10 years. It's great. Perfect color. I love it. We're just gonna go right on top. Some people don't do like the cherry ball on your cheek, but my cheeks are giant, so I feel like I have to, or else it looks uneven and weird. My mom's cheekbones are like even higher than mine. They like go into her eyeballs. And just gotta be wary of that. People think I have filler in my cheeks. I don't. I have filler other places, not in my cheekbones though. It's just what they are. I have giant infant fat in my eyes, cheekbones. That's just how it is. All right. Now, before I move on to the details, because this is kind of the base of your face, I'm gonna go back over everything with my beauty blender. You're gonna have some creases. Typically mine come under my eyes, kind of in this area, a little bit in my chin, and I just wanna smooth everything out, blank canvas before we start the fun stuff, like eyes and lips. And I recommend getting a little handheld for this kind of stuff when you wanna be really close and see those lines. Boy. Sometimes when I use a handheld mirror, I get scared because like you see your face so full close up and it's terrifying. But just look at little pieces of your face. Don't look at the whole face. Don't get scared. And then under my eyes. And mainly just tapping. Especially under the eyes because that skin is so sensitive. You just want to make sure to protect it. And then eyelids. Creases. All right, good to go, baby. Let's do a lip. Let's do a lip and a question. So the question, I really resonated with this and I thought it was funny and cute. Someone said, will I ever not feel like I'm only 16 years old in my head? Sincerely, a 31-year-old mom. I have never consciously thought about that, about how I still feel like I'm a kid and like who gave me the right to have like babies and be married and like do real stuff. But I totally identify with this feeling. I was just watching a video too of this guy, he and his wife were talking about their new parents and they just had a baby. And he was like, I don't feel like a dad. I just feel like I'm still a kid and I'm like cosplaying as a dad. And I think about that so much. I think when we're kids and we see, oh, I'm using the Jacqueline Hill caramel latte. So I'm just gonna line my lips. But I think about that often, and I think that that's something that we all kind of go through, whether that's as a parent or as a person in your job or whatever it is. It's the imposter, age-old imposter syndrome, where we're like, am I allowed to be doing this stuff? And you just have to take responsibility and be confident in the idea that you're allowed to do all the things that you want as a human being, and you only have one life, and you get to do all this fun stuff. But it is funny, because I still do feel like I'm 16, just trying to like have this real life. And I wonder if you ever get over that. Like, I wonder if we're 80 and we look in the mirror, we're gonna be like, am I 80? Like, I'm 12, you know? It'll be interesting to see. I guess we'll have to wait. Fingers crossed, I make it. All right, we lined all the way. Now I'm gonna go over with a Divine Rose. I think this is Pat McGrath, and I like this color. I like any like neutral, blushy plum color. Some people like to overline their lips, but I have found that that only looks good for like half an hour, and then naturally your lips just show themselves for what they really are, and then it doesn't look good after that. So I don't overline. I go right on my lip. All right, and then because my lips are pretty dry, I'm gonna put a gloss over top. And this is the Buxom Full On Plumping Lip polish. Beautiful. Next, let's get brow pen. Anastasia. You got to be very careful with this guy because one little like hard move will screw you. And I know this because I do it 50% of the time. So I have to be extra light. I'm just trying to fill in the spots of my brows that are full. And so I just go in with this guy very lightly. Also, let's say you make a mistake and you go a little too hard. What I do at the end is I take this guy, a little spoolie, and I just kind of brush it out. So if you do go a little too hard, you can always fix it. Everything can always be fixed. That's something I'm telling my 4-year-old now a lot. And I have to remember that too. Everything can always be fixed. Nothing, or very rarely, are things worth a panic or a yell over. Now I'm going to spoolie, so we get the color in there, and it feels a little more full, but it's not so like stark lines. All right, next I'm gonna use the Benefit, the brow setter and the brow gel. You use the brow gel first. Just nice and light, and down. Boost on it. All right. We are 80% of the way there. All right, it's the last hurrah, the final piece of the puzzle, which is eyes. So let's look. I got my Soft Glam Anastasia palette. And before I go in with my color, I like to do a light base just to kind of open up my eye and make me look bright-eyed and ready for the day. So let me get my little brush here. I'll go with this guy. And I just got this palette at Target. It's the Jason Wu Flora Matte Agave template. So we're gonna use this. So I'm just gonna go in with a little of the white, and then a little of this like pinky shade, kind of neutral. Go back over the white. I want it pretty light, and this will just be my base, just to kind of brighten everything up before we kind of go in with our color. And while I'm doing eyes, I'm gonna answer our last question, which is how has motherhood affected your identity, sense of self? Has it been a season of growth? That's a great question. Motherhood is an all-encompassing journey, and it's a very fun one and a very exhausting one. And I think when I first became a mom, I knew like consciously that I was going to be spending the majority of my time figuring out how to raise my kids in the best way. That was generally what I was going to be doing most of my days. But it wasn't until Cal was born that I think I realized the weight of it. Like I remember putting him down when he was a newborn for a nap, and I was like, oh, great, I have like an hour now to get stuff done. And then he'd wake up in 30 minutes and I was like, oh my God, I didn't get any stuff done. So I think the biggest transition for me was just learning that motherhood essentially is just constant multitasking. I had to really separate my brain and allow myself to not be fully present, I guess, in like my tasks or the things that were all about me. I always have this little thing in my head that's wondering, is my kid safe? Is he fed? Does he have to go potty? What does he need? That's just kind of the backdrop of being a mom. So I think that was probably the biggest adjustment, is getting used to that and realizing that your autonomy, at least for that first 4 or 5 years, really does kind of go out the window. And it changes, of course, like as they age. Now that Cal is 4, he's much more independent. He can do things by himself. He can get his own snacks out of the pantry, and he can go potty by himself sometimes. But it... What was that? Oh. Huge mess. Anyways, that's a perfect example of Cal knocking the dog bowl down, and now it's crashed. There's always like moving parts in your life, whereas when I was just like a single person with no responsibilities, I was just only worrying about what I was doing for myself. So that was a big adjustment. I can say now with the second kid, now that I'm a mom full-time anyways, that having a second one that you just kind of throw into the mix is much easier because you're already thinking in that way. And it is an easier adjustment because you just add another one to the already hectic, wild existence that is being a mom. That being said, being a mom is so much more fulfilling than I think I expected it to be. It certainly isn't my identity in terms of what I want to accomplish, and I don't want to put that on my kids either. I think the term identity is a good word because it's very easy to lose yourself in being a mom. It is so all-consuming. But what I realized through therapy is that could be damaging to my child. It can be just as damaging to my child as it can be to me if I put all of my hopes and my dreams and my identity into my kid. That's a big weight of responsibility for them to carry. If they feel like their existence is your happiness and your fulfillment fully, then that's a lot of weight to carry. And I think it's healthy for your kids to see you pursuing things that you love, pursuing your own goals that are kind of outside of anything to do with them. It's hard. It takes a lot of mental work to get a system in place where that's even possible, to be able to figure out, okay, how do I get the dishes done, and how do I make sure my house is clean and my kids are fed, and that I set time for myself to read or to pursue a dream or whatever it may be. It takes a long time to get that system in place. And I don't think I really got it to a point where it felt manageable until Cal was probably 2. And so if you're in that newborn season especially, or that new infant season, if it's your first, and you're like, does it get better? How do I not lose myself in this wild journey? It really does, because you get better at managing your brain space and figuring out what works best for your kids, what they need, what you need to be able to survive, kind of what we were talking about before with putting your gas mask on. Your oxygen mask. Wow. I mean, so morbid. But you will find your way, especially if you're doing stuff like asking these questions. Guys, that's half the battle. You're thinking about, how can I be the best parent that I can be in spite of not having the amount of time that I want, or the amount of energy that I wish I had, or whatever it is. You asking the questions leads to a path where you can then find a solution. And so even if you're in a really tough season of motherhood, which I had been there, it does get easier as you figure out what works best for you and your family. And something for me that has been hard is learning how to manage guilt. I think a lot of moms have this dream of wanting to be a super mom, wanting to do absolutely all of it. They want to plan the parties and be the one that wakes them up and puts them down and is working 100% of the time on something they love, and also being a parent and fully present and dedicated 100% of the time. And that's like quite literally impossible. And learning how to outsource and ask for help so that I can maximize myself and be the best parent I can be while also not losing myself in motherhood is challenging. And I tell myself this like I have that figured out. I feel guilt all the time, whether that be because I'm doing something I love and I'm not with my child at that moment, I feel guilt, or if I'm with my kid all week long, 100% of the time, and then I'm like, I didn't do that thing for myself. You feel it no matter what. That's like the weight of being a mom, I think. Just being a woman in general. But it does get easier. Talking to other women who are experiencing what you are really helps. Cal has this really cute preschool, and the moms there are just so smart and cute. And we talk about this stuff all the time. And just hearing that I'm not alone in trying to balance being a human being and being a mom is helpful. We're all going through it. If you think that you're doing a bad job, you're probably not. if you're even thinking that far, if you're even thinking, am I doing enough as a parent? Like, you're asking the questions that bad parents don't ask themselves. You know, bad parents don't care. So don't sweat the small stuff. Do what you need to fulfill yourself, to fill your cup, so that when you're with your kids, you can be present and loving and empathetic and patient and kind. So I think I'm done with my eyes, at least the eyeshadow. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go over with Highbrow Duo pencil, and I'm gonna go on my waterline just to kind of brighten my eye up. And I'm gonna take a little shadow, the same color that I used, this Dusty Rose and Rose Pink from the Anastasia palette. That's what I used. And I'm gonna go underneath. Instead of a liner, I'm gonna just use powder. I feel like it looks more even and not so harsh. That's what I use. Right underneath. I used to be scared of anything under my eyes. Don't be scared. Just brighten up with foundation and concealer, and then you can use cool colors to kind of give your eyes definition. All right. Now I'm gonna do liner, just a thin liner on top. Final step, mascara. The thing that changes your face and your makeup the most. And you also get to do it last, which is fun. I'm using the Lancome. I don't know if my eyes are getting bad or if that's just the tiniest handwriting of all time, but I see 62XA, if that helps. Just gonna go through. And I like to kind of shimmy on the bottom of my lash and then pull up. All the way up. Makeup is done. There's nothing better than feeling ready for your day. Makeup's on, outfit is on, we're ready to tackle the world. So thanks for joining me today, and thanks for being here for both the makeup and the therapeutic tools. I hope some of that helped. I know personally for me, therapy has been the single most life-transforming thing that I've done for myself. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I implore you to look into it and see if you can find your own Kim that can really help kind of guide you and help you discover things about yourself that you've never thought of before. So we're gonna do another one of these soon, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.